Hello and welcome once again to Life That Matters with Dr. Sharon Norris Elliott. That happens to be me, and so I'm so grateful to have you here today. If this is your first time maybe stumbling across my program, stay here. I'm so glad that you're here. You're going to have fun with our guests today, and then those of you who have been here before, you already know, how much fun we have talking to our guests, and different times I even, turn aside and preach. What? So we have a lot of fun, but here's the point of getting together. Life that matters. I want you to know that your life matters for God. The things that He has planted in you, the gifts that you have, the dreams you have, the goals you have, those things are God planted. And He wants to help you with them, and He wants you to lend those things back to Him so that He will use your life, right? And so I want you to know your life matters. So what I do here on the program is I interview other folks who are just like you, just like me, right? Just regular folks who have just started to live out some of the things that God has put in them. And so my goal is that you would see me, you would see them, and you would say to yourself, self, if she could do it, if he could do it, guess what? I could do it too, because my life matters for God. You see my logic? Yeah, you see how that works? So I want to introduce you to my guest today. Her name is Marci Seither. Hi, Marci.
Hey there, Sharon.
Now, Marci and I hope you could tell that Marci and I are twins.
Yeah.
Yes. Our birthdays are on the same day. Just a few years apart, but I think you could see the resemblance. So I'm glad that you could pick that up.
We always tease that Mom likes Sharon better.
But she's my twin. Your twin is your twin. You know, you're just close like that. The neat thing is Marci was one of my first guests when I started broadcasting this show. I've been here almost since the network started, so like 7 years ago. And the owner of the network said that I could have this show, I could do this show, and I was like, great, and he said, I want you to start Thursday. It was something like Monday, right? What am I gonna do? And so thankfully I had friends, and I had friends who had written books. So I said, okay, we authors are always looking, right, for a way to let people know about our books. So what I'm going to do on my show is I'm going to interview my friends and have them bring their books. So Marci answered that call. All those years ago, she was living here in California. At the time, you had to be in studio. We didn't even have the facility that we have now to bring you in like we're doing now. Because Marci, where are you living now?
We are living by Nashville, Tennessee.
Near Nashville. So she's all the way, right, in Nashville, Tennessee. And you just moved. You haven't been there very long.
Yeah, we moved. It's going to be 2 years in January. So
it doesn't seem that long.
I know. It's gone pretty quick.
Yeah, so I haven't even gotten to her house in Tennessee yet. So one of these days, I'm going to shoot by when I'm in the area.
I have mastered the art of the proper Southern biscuit. So I'm kind of proud of that. So yeah, you come over, Sharon, and I will bake you a proper Southern biscuit.
That's right.
Yeah. So,
So yeah, Jane is in the South with her daughter right now. But if you were here on my last program, I interviewed my friend Jane Daly, who is now riding around the country with her husband in their motorhome. That's her new life. But she just happens to be with her daughter in the South. And so we talked about saying, how y'all doing, right? To everyone we meet. So here with Marci, the reason why Marci is here this time is because she has yet another book published. Yay! I'm so proud of you, Marci. So let's start talking a little bit about the new book. I have a copy of it. Yay! Okay, Lakeside Retreat. So why don't you go ahead and tell our audience about this new book?
Well, Lakeside Retreat is part of a 3-part series. Tyndale wanted to do something that was similar to what Thomas Nelson has. Thomas Nelson has a whole line of devotions. They have devotions from the kitchen table, devotions from the beachside, but Tyndale wanted something that was more destination specific. Mm-hmm. So you feel like you have been to that place instead of like a random beach someplace. They wanted it to feel like you have been to that place. Right. And so it was kind of neat because they already had a writer for the other 2. And then I had gone with Susie Flory and done all the photography and drone footage for her marketing for Sanctuary and created a cookbook that went with that. And so when we went to Tyndale House, they said, yeah, do you think she could do that? And so it was a perfect fit for me because I already loved doing the photography, and they have 12 tutorials in here. So some of those were recipes. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was a really fun fit. And I love the fact that when people have read it, they're like, we feel like we have been to that cabin with you. We feel like we've been to the lake. We can smell it. We can taste it. We can hear it. And so I think that was great on their part to think about having it be such a great sensory rich devotional that people feel like they've had a little vacation without leaving their house. Kind of like us having the comfort from your own home.
We have been locked away, right? Yeah. Due to COVID and all of that. And so even if we haven't gotten back out yet, Lakeside Retreat is like dipping your toe, right, in the lake that you can't quite get to just yet, but you're looking forward, right, to really getting out. Now, I asked Marci to give me a verse. We were talking about what verse of scripture, right, would we kind of focus on or swing from as I think about the lake, right, swinging out over the lake. And we thought of the same verse, which is kind of one of those go-to verses in scripture, which is in Matthew 11, verse 28. And it says, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden," and this is the phrase, "and I will give you rest." Now, if you have a red letter Bible, in a red letter Bible, what that means is that all the words that are in red were actually spoken by the Lord Jesus. And these are words that were spoken by Christ. So this is a promise from him that when we come to him, he will give us rest. And what better way to rest, right, than to get away at a lake, right? To get away in a devotion, right? Every morning or something like that. Now, here's the funny part. The funny part is that the first devotion is called packing. Now, Marci, when I think about packing, I am not thinking about rest. Packing is a chore. So how have you put packing together with rest?
Well, so actually, this one is not my photo, but I do have these suitcases, and I will tell you, they are so cute, but they are so heavy. Like, I end up taking all my gear and I put them in one of these suitcases, and I'm serious. My arm, the one arm, I'm sure is about 3 inches longer than the other. and traveling with it. And I love it because I pack way too much. And pretty soon, that's what life feels like. And we are packing so much stuff into our suitcase. And then I put it over to, that's kind of how our life feels. Like we just put everything in that we might need. And out of fear and desperation and the whole FOMO, fear of missing out. Like, I don't know, I might need an extra pair of scuba gear or whatever. And so pretty soon you're packing all this, like how many pairs of black shoes does one person need for a 3-day journey?
Wait.
And yet
I am 100% guilty. That's why I travel with a particular airline that lets my bags fly free.
Oh yeah.
Because I need to have, and my thing is not so much, I'm fearful of something. I just like my own creature comforts.
That is true. But how many times, like, have I carried stuff and it has gotten so heavy and so labor intensive just to tote that around. And I put it back to come to me, all who are weak and heavy laden.
Yes.
And I will give you rest, because sometimes, I mean, it's one thing when it's your suitcase, but pretty soon, what is it? What about our calendar? What about our life? You know, we're coming up on the holidays. Well, how much stuff can we pack in to a suitcase, into our day planner, into our mind? And pretty soon everything is so crammed and so fit that we really don't have breathing room, and we haven't really taken time to rest because we can't even move. And so I just think that that's something important to remember, is that we pack in way too much stuff and we don't give room for rest. And so I loved that about this, the devotional. It was fun when they asked me if I would do this, and I worked with them on it, but I didn't actually realize how much I personally so I'm preaching to the choir here, sister.
No, exactly. Because I'm sitting here raising my hand, when you say, oh, how much can we pack it to your calendar? Okay, so you stopped preaching and started meddling now, okay?
Yeah. I'm getting into your business here. I'm just getting all up in your business.
Wow.
That is, it is so true. And so even good things can become a burden. Like when we say, yes, we can. Yes, we can.
I could do that.
Yeah. I've actually started the discipline of calling January Jan-Nowary. Like I don't put anything new on in January because of having everything be so cramped. Like, how can I start my new year fresh when it's already feeling cramped? And so I just think that the Lord offers that comfort to us. He says, come to me and I will, because what I have is lighter for you. Yeah. And I'm like, I just really want something with wheels on the bottom, and I'd be able to a bit easier. But the Lord does that to us.
And I think I love that. The idea of doing what God said to do rather than what I decide I want to do.
Yes.
Because I like to do lots of things.
Yes.
I'm one of those people, right? I'm a choleric sanguine personality. I love being in charge, and I love having a great time while I'm in charge.
Yes. Well,
planning stuff and getting things going and seeing it going and seeing other people, right? Enjoying that. I mean, that's me, like 100%. And so to separate what I want to do from what God says is the best thing to do, because none of the things I want to do are bad things.
Right. Yeah.
And so, trying to follow his lead is, rather than come on, Jesus, we got stuff to do.
Well, it's kind of like rolling through a stoplight, or a stop sign. We don't come to a complete stop. We just kind of roll through it. It's still not a stop.
It's not a stop.
And I think that's, it was kind of interesting because I had already done this, and I had gone to had gone to someplace with my mom and my sister, and they had a handbell choir, and I was so excited to see that. And because, like you said, you're always thinking, I'm thinking, oh, that'd be so fun to do handbells.
Fun.
Um,
I'm taking up handbells.
And so when they came out, they all had these matching vests on. I'm like, they're like brownies. Like they just grew up. They're like, they were all kind of matching. And I thought, that's cute, like a little ensemble.
Yeah.
And then I realized when they started doing these beautiful handbells, they would actually take the handbell and they would put it to their shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
So those vests were actually to come to a complete stop, because if you have played any musical instrument, you know that there's different notes have different values. So, a quarter note, a half note, and then there's a rest mark. But I was thinking, what about a handbell? The handbell is continuous until it's fully stopped.
Yes.
And so I asked a friend who did handbells, I'm like, what is that called if you don't rest the handbell, if you just let it go? She said, that's called bleeding.
Ooh.
And I'm like, wow, that is such a picture of what the Lord is saying when I will give you rest. He is not saying, I will give you slow, or I will or, he is saying, or pause even. He's saying, I'm going to give you come to a complete rest so that you're not bleeding out. And I just thought that was such a beautiful picture for me of what the Lord does. And yet so many times we're just like, yeah, we don't want the vest. We've got way too much to do to come to a complete stop. But if you don't come to a complete stop when you're doing the handbells, pretty soon it's called muddy. It becomes muddy in the fact that everything runs together. It's like my dad's plate at the family reunion when he put next to the mashed potatoes. It's like everything becomes one thing and nothing looks good anymore. And so I think sometimes we need to think about our rest as being something that's actually a service to the Lord. It is an act of obedience and worship. I mean, he did give us a day of rest. And it wasn't so that we could just say, okay, that's not like our extra credit day, like everything, our overflow day.
Everything I didn't finish during the week, I could do it on Sunday.
Right? Yeah. He says, no, I want you to.
And it's interesting, Marci, that God took a rest.
Yes.
Out of anybody who doesn't need to rest.
Yeah.
Right? So he didn't rest on the seventh day because he needed to rest.
No.
He rested because the work was done and it was time to stop.
Yeah.
And that was an example, for us. I am almost there. I will confess that I am almost there to do nothing. On Sunday, we go to church, and then I like to just do either nothing. Sunday afternoon nap is the best nap, all week. Or I like to spend that time with friends. We go out to eat together or whatever. Last Sunday, we went bowling. I haven't bowled in years. And it was so much fun.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I'm not great at it, but I didn't do too bad. But anyway, this is not about bowling. This is about you all and rest. And so, if you're super too competitive, then that's not rest. No. Right? Because you're fighting over the pins. But anyway, I digress.
That's a different prayer request. That's a different program.
Right. That's a whole different
on humility. Yeah.
On humility. But I love the picture that you're painting with that devotion about packing, overpacking, and that packing. I love it when I'm packing to actually go on a vacation.
Yeah.
That is, we're looking forward, right? The anticipation. of where we could go and what we're going to do, right, when we get there. My husband's idea of vacation is rest. That's it. Go to the place and rest, right? Take some naps, right? So he has rest down to a science, right? I don't quite yet. Okay, so you just came back from a book tour,
Yes.
right? So talk about that.
So my husband and I took a 30-day book tour, and it was actually great. I mean, it wasn't exhausting. People thought it was exhausting, but we did plan enough time. Like, we would travel and spend a day and visit with people. And that's what I really loved too, was that it is a connector. And I loved the fact that we could connect with people that we hadn't seen for a long time, that we might not see again. Like, some of them are in their 90s now, and just to be thankful. And I think part of taking a rest is it puts you in a different mind of being grateful of maybe people who have been part of your life. I think sometimes when we're so busy, we're always thinking like, and what's tomorrow look like? And what's tomorrow look like? And pretty soon you realize you haven't contacted the old piano teacher that had such an input into your life, maybe for years. And so I think when we have rest, it allows us to kind of saturate in and just kind of meditate on what it is to be grateful, and being able to act on that. And the people that we saw and visited with and stayed with, I would have to say that was the best part of the whole book tour for us.
Nice.
So,
Nice. I noticed that when I actually rest, I am more productive.
Oh, yeah.
The next day or the next week or what have you. You know, when I've actually taken time to say, I'm not doing anything. Right? I'm not taking business phone calls. I'm off the grid.
Yeah.
So to speak.
And I think we do live in a society now where, when somebody called in the old days, they left a message, or they called you back. But now we just feel like we are so important that we have to answer the phone if we're in a public restroom or something. I mean, like, that is my biggest pet peeve, is when people are talking on the phone in a public restroom. I just think that, really, are you that important that you can't? I mean,
you can't take care of your necessities.
I know,
without talking on the phone.
Yeah, and
That's so true.
I just think sometimes we feel like we have to be connected all the time, and if we hear people like, oh, somebody might be liking something. So what? Let it rest. Let it rest. You can go back to that. And so I just think it's kind of an important thing to just kind of unplug a little bit and dip your toes into whatever it is that you have right in front of you, and not be so distracted by all the other things that are beeping and blinging and chirping or whatever.
That is so true. It is very hard to do.
Yes.
But as authors, we find that being an author is one of those professions that forces you to get away. You have to put bottom in seat, right? And be by yourself and in quiet. So you can hear, especially those of us who are Christian authors and writing to capture what thus saith the Lord. It's important to get back and be able to hear so that we can then communicate, right?
Yeah.
What he wants us to do. So what another thing that I love about Marci's book is, because I'm rushing around all the time, is that the devotions are short. They are quick things to read, but there are sections even left in the book that I can use to jot down my thoughts, to actually get quiet for a moment with each one of these devotions, and answer some little questions that she has left for us. So, Marci, believe it or not, we are coming up to the end of our time together, So why don't you leave us with, I'll give you a minute and a half
Okay.
of what you might want to leave the audience with as we think about retreating, resting.
I just think that for resting, one of the things that we end up doing, I would have to say, is we say yes to way too much stuff. And you can be the master. You can try and do
Guilty.
everything, but that doesn't mean that you should do everything. And I love the fact, I mean, all of these things you can do. It's like, okay, I can do that in the car. I can do that here. We're trying to streamline our operation. We're doing audiobooks where we can just go from the car to the house while we're doing this. And I just think that there's something so valuable about being intentional.
Yes.
Being intentional with our time with the Lord, being intentional with our time with each other, and being intentional about the legacy we want to leave for our families. One of the things that, like, this cabin was not our cabin. This was our friend's cabin. But the reason why I loved it was because it had been passed through the generations. And so they had a legacy of their own. But my grandparents also lived on a lake, and we also went camping. So I just think of those legacy things that we want to do. And I think sometimes when we're so busy and focused on the urgency, we forget about some of those things that are important. What are those things that will last? And so I just, in our time of rest, we can be intentional about the direction of our lives. And I love in Ephesians where it says that we would be worthy of our calling. What is it that the Lord has called us to do? And to rest in that and seek him first in those things.
That is so good, and a perfect place for us to end today. Be intentional in your rest. Like, lean back into the Lord and rest in him and hear, because he has some stuff to say to you. Why? Because your life matters for God. He loves you. Thank you, Marci, so much, twin, for being with me again. We have to intentionally stay in contact, okay? I love you. Audience, I love you. And God loves you most of all. Be with me again next